This is Tommy from Tommy Art and Design, and I welcome you to part 2 of the minimal bus illustration. We're going to start off with the wheels for part 2, and I don't think it's really necessary to make the wheels look exactly like they do in the photo. They can just have a kind of a forward-facing look to them. So we're just going to create a series of circles, and I'm going to press L on the keyboard and position that circle in the right place. Once I have it, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to get my pre-selected colors like I discussed in part 1. Then after I have each one of these positioned, I'm simply just going to hit Command C, Command F to paste those in place, and then change the circle to the size of the next circle and use the eyedropper again to select the correct colors. I'm just going to repeat this process until I have all of the circles. This is the benefit of having your colors pre-selected over to the side. Makes everything a little bit easier. Command C, Command F. Get that shape. Command C, Command F, and the eyedropper. Just same thing over and over again. Then once I have everything in place, I'm going to do a series of sending these shapes to the back so the right ones are in front. So I'm going to right click, arrange, send it back. Then I'm going to hold shift and click both of them, arrange, send it back, and then hold shift, select. I'm just going to repeat that until they're in the right order. Now, one of the things that makes these wheels look so cool is those little circles in the hubcap or in the wheel. And we're going to try to replicate that, but we're not going to do it exactly. We're just going to make it very straightforward. So I'm going to hit L on the keyboard to form a circle, and once I have that in place, I'm going to choose the rotate tool, which is R on your keyboard, and then I'm going to put it right in the center and hit Option to click, and then I'm going to set it to about 20 degrees. I'm going to hit Copy, not OK. You have to hit Copy, and then hit Command D, and it will replicate that over and over again. And that's a really quick way to make circles all the way around. I'm just going to copy this whole tire, and I'm going to hit Option and click and drag it over to the other side, and then I'm going to right click, transform, and flip horizontally, and just save myself a little time. Now I have 2 tires instead of having to draw a whole other tire over again. Now we're going to concentrate on all these little parts like lines and bumpers. So I'm going to start with the bumpers that are on the outside. So I hit Shift X on all those to make them so they're out of my way. And then the eyedropper tool to get the color. And then I'm just going to hit M on the keyboard for a square, A for the direct selection tool, and P for the pen tool. This is the same process as last time, over and over again, just to create these shapes. This is good practice to learn how to manipulate shapes into any shape that you want to out of simple squares and simple circles. So A grabs those points and moves those exactly where I need them to be. While the object is selected, I hit P on the keyboard to add anchor points where I need them, and then I use the direct selection tool to manipulate them, curve them, and put them in place. I also use the anchor point tool, which is Shift C on the keyboard, so I can bend lines. Makes it just a little bit easier, a little quicker to bend lines when you use that tool. And once I have it looking exactly the way I want to, and all the corners are curved just right, I can hit Shift X, and there's my first bumper. I'm going to repeat this process on the back. We're going to use M for the square tool, A for the direct selection tool, and P for the pen tool to add anchor points, and Shift C for the anchor point tool, which we use to bend the lines. So I'm roughly putting everything in place. Adding some anchor points for these little curves. And as you can see, I leave these corners on the outside of those curves so we can pull them in. When we get to the top part here, you'll notice another way that I position these to be sure I get the curve right. See how I pull this outside so I can pull it in? That's a good rule of thumb. There we go. Same process. And here, and we'll have ourselves two bumpers in just a second. Direct selection tool, move it into place. Shift C for the anchor point tool, curve that line, then Shift X. Boom.
You like watching critters frolicking in your backyard? Well, then you need some cracked corn for your critters. All critters love our cracked corn. Come on down and get you some. Only $5.99 a bag. Only at Country Queen. All right, there's a spot. Let's go check it out. All right, so look what we got here. Look, what is this? That looks like, is that corn? Corn? You expect me to eat that? That's what you put out for me?
Moving right along, we are going to go through the rest of the tutorial and start adding little parts like these tail lights. I'm just going to put a square and then around the corner. I chose my own color. I didn't really pre-organize the colors for the tail lights. I just picked a good red and a good orange. M for the square tool, pick a good red, round only the bottom corner by just picking that point, and then it's back, boom, we got a tail light. I just sampled that color from the hubcap so I could use it to do the headlight. Just gonna make a square. Use a direct selection tool to move my points in place, just like we've been doing throughout the entire tutorial. Shift C for the anchor point tool. I'm just going to round those edges. Once again, putting everything in place to make a good round corner. Pull it in. Line it up. Shift X, I'm going to use the Pathfinder tool to combine those shapes into one shape and arrange, send it back. So here going to create this little front part that holds the windshield. Make a square. I for the eyedropper tool to adopt the color of the rest of the bus. I'm just going to move everything into place. Now, this is going to be a little complicated. You might get a little confused, so you might have to pause and restart. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the shapes around it to create this shape by using the Pathfinder tool. So I'm just going to move this part into general location and move the bottom part into a general location. And I'm going to turn it into a shape and send it back. Now I'm going to select this shape and I'm going to hit Command C, select both of them, and cut the front object out of it. And then I can Command F to paste that shape back in place. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Command C, select the shape, subtract the shape, Command F, paste in place. Now sometimes you get a little piece left over when you do this. So I got this little piece right there left over. So if you can see it right there. So I'm going to right click and hit ungroup, and then shift click the big shape. So that's all that's remaining. I can just delete that. Now one more time, arrange, send to back. Select the shape, Command C, select the other shape, cut it out, Command F to paste in place, and then I can hit Shift X and see that I can now create the outside shape of the front of the bus, because now the bottom and the right side match, because I used the existing shapes to create this shape. Make sure you have your shape selected when you want to add an anchor point with the pen tool. Shift C, curve that right up. Now I'm going to go a little off track here, and I'm going to bring in a new tool that we haven't used quite yet. I'm going to use the pen tool a little differently. I'm going to actually draw this with the pen tool. There will be more tutorials about the pen tool in the future. So I'm just going to draw a straight line with the pen tool down the edge, and then I'm just going to click, and I'm going to pull just a little bit so I can make this round corner, and just pull that, and then it doesn't really matter here. I can make whatever shape I want. And what I'm going to do is use the shape builder tool to create that shape in between. So I'm going to make sure that both of them are where I want them, and I'm Shift X, Shift M for the shape builder tool, and I'm just going to click right there, and then delete the excess, and what's left behind is the shape that I want. I just need to pull that in a little bit, so I'm going to hit Shift C on the keyboard and pull that in. And then I can hit Shift X, turn that back into a shape, and then I can hit I and go pick my light highlight color that I'm going to use for a windshield. Now that we have that windshield, we can do the rest of them. This is really easy. So I'm just going to select the shape, and I'm going to use Shift M and click right in the center. Then click off to the side, click it again, I, and then adopt that color. And I'm going to repeat that process with these other two. Select the shape, Shift M, click, click, V on the keyboard, click off, select, I. There you go. Now we're getting somewhere. Starting to look like a whole bus. And moving right along. I'm going to create a new layer so I can create the line for the door. So I'm going to select both these objects, hit Command C, then I hit Command F to paste both of them in place on this new layer. So I have to zoom in and make sure that the edges are lined up just right, because these shapes aren't exactly the way they're supposed to be. So I need to move them just around just a little bit so they overlap and line up with the line that I want to create. And after I'm happy, I can select both of them, use the shape builder tool, and just create a new shape, turn it to a darker color, hit Shift X, and now I have that line. So I can release that compound path, and now I have my two separate lines. So I'll select my existing windows, Command C, Command F on that new layer, and I can create that same stroke. I want it to be a thicker stroke, and I want to go to my stroke panel, and I want to align that stroke to the inside. So I'm going to create that rubber seal look. And once I have it on that, I can just click the other, use the eyedropper, and it'll adopt the same properties. So I'm going to select both those, Command C, Command F to paste in place, and I'm going to select a gray color. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to align that stroke to the inside, but I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than the black stroke to make it look like that chrome. I'm going to do the same thing over here, but just not as dramatic. And now we have our seals and our chrome on our bus windows. Now the rest of these little black parts at the top, these rubber seals, we're just gonna do the same that we've done throughout the entire tutorial. We're gonna manipulate shapes using the direct selection tool, the anchor tool, and the pen tool to add anchor points. It shouldn't be too complicated. It's basically just a long square, long rectangle. So, oh, there we go. Put everything in place. Make sure it all lines up. Make sure it looks good. Because we haven't been, trying to make this exactly the same, so we want to make sure it looks good as an illustration. So it's okay if it's not perfect, but just as long as it all flows together in the end. I'm gonna just go ahead and use the pen tool again to create this little part. You can go ahead and use the shape to create this if you want to. Just that little part, it's okay to do with the pen tool. Now, these are just rectangles with rounded edges. The top one and the bottom one are a little different than the ones in the middle. They have a more rounded edge in one corner, so you just need to round those edges. They don't have to be exact. I'm going to try to flip this one upside down and see how similar it is. It's not quite the same, but I can still move this around and manipulate it and make it match. Just move those anchor points, move those handles, and make it match. Then repeat that process. And now that I have one, I'm just going to copy that over and over again, move them into place, turn that layer back on, take a look at it, and just kind of line them up to where they look visually appealing. There we go. Pretty simple, a little square. Adopt that color. Line, little circle. Pretty easy. Not sure what this is, some sort of latch or something, but we'll just go ahead and add that to make it the chrome color. And a little door handle, which is just fun. So I'm going to make an oval. You can use the circle tool, L, and I'm going to make a little square, round it, and then I'll use the pathfinder tool to blend them into one shape, and I'll choose my darker color to give it some shadow. There you go. And then I'm just going to hide that for a minute so I can make the chrome. Pretty similar process, just going to make a rectangle and round the edges. And make a circle for the keyhole. Pick my chrome colors that I have, and there we go. We have a little door handle. Looks good to me. Now I'm moving my layers around to make sure everything is where I need it to be. I'm going to create the mirror, because the mirror needs to be on top of everything else. I've created a new layer. So I created a circle, a little rectangle, rounded the edge, gotta make another rectangle, another circle, connect it all together. Just using the eyedropper to get the colors that I want. So I got a rubber seal, a little chrome piece, another little chrome piece. Using the direct selection tool to move everything into place. Make everything the same color. Select everything and use the pathfinder tool to make it all one object. And there we have a mirror. Not too hard. I'm gonna go ahead and add this little part for the window. Little details. In the final tutorial, what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll add shadow and highlights to everything and give everything just a little more realistic feel to it, because it's pretty flat right now. But that's the fun, getting through the tutorial. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adding these black shadow parts of the engine and car that are behind that you can't see. These don't have to be perfect, just arranged in the back. There's another one up here in the bumper, dark shadow. I'm just going to use the pen tool and make a odd shape, send it to the back. Same on the back bumper. And there you go. Stay tuned for part 3.